This week in the cool stuff, I was hanging with Mix Blouse, an artist that's breaking barriers everywhere. The setting, Braam at Kitchener's, where they first debuted. We spoke about how the latest track, Isipukupuku, came about.
I was in Cape Town, and on a random day I made plans to go meet up with one of my producers in studio. And it so happened that Mshindi, who comes from a duo called Stiff Bap, was in town as well, and she was also going to be working with my producer Thor. So we all met up in studio, and I guess everything else is history.
And of course, Isipukupuku is loosely translated from Zulu to English as the idiot.
Yeah.
What is it that you're working with? What is the play on words here?
So initially the track, because the beat was just like so festive to me, so I wanted to make a party track, but I'm so inclined to thinking about social issues that instead of just talking about the party, I started talking about the things that I see happening at the party. And one of those things is just the level of disrespect that female and queer bodies experience in the party space. So the idiot sort of became, whoever is perpetrating that kind of abusive behavior in those spaces. But I also kind of touch on politics. I speak about Jacob Zuma, I speak about Cyril Ramaphosa and Marikana. The political message there is that, when our leaders abuse resources or cause pain, inflict pain in any way, that's a form of dispossession, in the same way that these bodies are becoming dispossessed.
Now, of course, you are intensely political. That's how I got to know you. If you were to put a label to what it is that you're doing, what would it be?
For me, labeling it would be taking away from the nuances of it. I'm just making music, I'm just expressing, and I think we need to start as people getting to that place where we feel less of an inclination towards labeling things.
I love what you're saying because, of course, if one looks at the music industry, people are very genre specific. If one looks at sexual politics, queer politics, body politics, people like binary answers to things. You defy genres. Is this the way in which you think people should be allowed to express themselves?
Previously the media space has been controlled by these conglomerates whereby, certain views can't get to the public. And what social media has done is sort of remind us, hold on, there are voices that have been silenced all along.
I was really excited when I saw you posting online a kind of sound check of a performance in Berlin. And of course, you, a kid who grew up in KwaZulu-Natal, how did you end up in Berlin?
The internet has really just, for me as an artist, it's opened up my world so much. When I put out my first sort of music, my first single online at the end of 2016, I had no idea that I would have people all over the world talking about my music and being interested in me as an artist.
Talking about that, you were actually featured in a very well-known gay magazine called Out in America. Is that how the people in Berlin got to know
100%.
about you?
So they saw my profile online on this magazine's website, and they sort of sent me an email and they said, when are you going to be in Berlin? I'm like, I can't afford to go to Berlin. You make a plan for me. And 2 months later, they actually did. And they brought me over to Berlin, and I sort of during that time got them to connect me with other people that I can sort of gig more around Berlin. And it was very interesting. I remember being in Leipzig, and one of the songs that I performed there is called Can't Walk the Streets. And I actually wrote the lyrics to that song after the whole Karabo Mokoena saga. I was just so tired. It was also during that Men Are Trash time, just looking at how female and queer bodies are treated. You can't walk the streets and just be yourself. Like, you constantly being asked, cover up, do this, do that, and if you are femme identifying, man up, and all of that. So the song Can't Walk the Streets without somebody saying something, you know, and just expressing that anger.
You don't separate your gender fluidity, your artistry, your music, your politics from each other. How do they infuse who you are as an artist?
I think, you know, the responsibility of the artist for me is to be a reflection of your time. And this is my time and my generation. I write about things that I experience. And, you know, it's impossible to not be a political body as a human being.